Meghan Markle is a ruthless one, isn't she? I mean, that's no surprise. We've seen the way she's treated her best mates. We've seen the way she's treated her father. But now she's done the same to the dude who literally gave up his journalism career, not that he had much of one, paid for a new face, lied about his age, all in the promotion of Meghan Markle's lies. Now, she said, bye-bye. You're no use to me. I've moved on. My new propagandists are much more interesting. Hello, Chris Ship of Woke ITV. Hello, Cameron Walker of GB News. And Omid Scobie, or Scabies as Lady Colin Campbell used to call him. You are dumped. This new reporting from Rob Shooter of Shooter Scoop, who says that the reason behind this was because Scobie was no longer useful to her. Remember, he had sort of started to write a TV drama based on his latest book, but I think it sold about 50 copies or something and didn't make the Amazon Top 1000, so probably isn't going to be made into a TV show now. But anyway, here is Shooter's reporting. For years, Omid Scobie was seen as Meghan Markle's fiercest champion. Now insiders tell Naughty But Nice the relationship has gone ice cold, and they don't believe it was his decision. While Scobie and Meghan have always denied being close friends, Palace insiders insist there was a time when he was one of her most valuable allies. And I mean, that's undeniable. There is no way Omid walked away. One insider tells Naughty But Nice Meghan was his biggest story, his meal ticket. If someone ended this relationship, it wasn't him. Sources say Meghan simply moved on. She has a pattern. Another insider claims people are incredibly valuable until they aren't. Once she feels she's gotten what she needs, she cuts ties and rarely looks back. Scobie has since stepped away from royal reporting, relocated to Los Angeles, and shifted his focus to television and fiction writing. He has insisted he doesn't have Prince Harry or Meghan's phone numbers, doesn't socialise with them, and has always relied on independent sources rather than direct access. Omid built a career covering Meghan, says one source. Walking away from your biggest story doesn't make sense. Being pushed aside does. Neither Meghan nor Scobie has commented on the current state of their relationship, but insiders say one thing is clear. Once Meghan no longer saw a role for her most loyal public defender, the relationship quietly faded away. Don't miss a single update on the stories that actually matter. I'm breaking down the news every day, so make sure you subscribe to never miss a beat. Click that subscribe button right now. Now, Robert Jobson, for many years, you sort of formed a, how do we put it, unlikely double act with Mr. Scobie. You were both royal contributors to ABC News. So on some of those,
I still am. I mean,
you still am. You still are. He's not.
But the thing is with Omid, obviously they want at that particular time, for whatever reason, they had signed him up, and that's a decision for them. So obviously, I would appear on one side, and he would appear speaking on behalf of them, because it was the story at the time, and I can see the commercial sense in having him, because he was there. But for them, it was an important time. Let's be honest. I mean, it was the American princess, and she was the story. So I suppose there was logic in it. But, I had to work alongside him. I wouldn't say we were necessarily friends, but we were colleagues, I suppose, for a short while.
And what do you think about the fact that Meghan... I mean, it's not a surprise, is it? We have to be honest. This is probably the least surprising story in royal history, because Meghan flicks anyone who isn't of immediate use to her. And of course, there's the big examples, Jobbo best friends, and her father, her sister, her brother. But there's actually a lot smaller examples, like you and I know some aides to Meghan, including during her time in the royal family, who were actually incredibly loyal in the most difficult of circumstances. And Meghan would get rid of them too, blame them for something that wasn't their fault. And so it's no surprise. Everyone should be warned. If you get close with Meghan Markle, it is very brief, because it's a transactional relationship. It's just what she does. The latest bombshells from Harry and Meghan that the Montecito Mafia and the rest of the media are desperate to hide. Subscribe right now for the real story with zero spin and zero censorship.
Yeah, anyone working for them shouldn't sign a contract for more than a year.
Yeah.
Thing. But the reality is, it was inevitable, because ultimately, once Omid was not with ABC, I suppose he was no longer very useful to her. He'd left to set up his own thing, doing his own thing in LA, and I'm sure they haven't swapped numbers, because he's no longer of any real use. There I am on camera.
And was the idea then, Jobbo, was the idea back then that basically you are the old sage, not too old, but you know what I'm saying, experienced, Joey, let's use the word experience, royal reporter who was sort of giving the position of what the British royal family is, what King Charles was, and Scobie was there to represent Meghan?
Yeah, I wasn't like the palace spokesman, but I was giving the perspective from, say, people knew that I was, fairly close to the king. I'd written a biography on the king. I got fairly solid Palace sources over 35 years. He was the new kid on the block, doing things his own way. Was was a different generation, and speaking for what was seen, I suppose, at that time as the new kids on the block, which were Harry and Meghan, doing things differently and wanting to do things their way. So I understand it, and it was, it's just normal reporting, really. And we never agreed on anything, but it didn't come to blows. I think it would have been quite dangerous if it did.
Oh, sorry, I'm just having a great vision. I would pay money. That would be better. That would be better than any cage fight or boxing match. But of course, it's been quite an interesting week of spin for the people who are now spinning this whole Meghan Markle thing, Jobbo, because they're trying to say now that she's an Emmy nominee. Did you see this? And it's actually not the main Emmy Awards. It's so her show With Love Meghan. I think we can all agree. It was awful. It was a disaster. No. It was like it had an 80 million budget, Jobbo. There was something like 90 staff members. Like, that is not a daytime TV show. That is a big budget, prime time Netflix production. Yet she has got a nomination for the daytime Emmys, which are, the daytime Emmys, Jobbo, it's like that's where the very cheap soap operas that, like The Bold and the Beautiful, those types of shows, American sort of panel shows like The View. It's those shows. So it does feel like this is a PR stitch-up for Meghan to be able to trumpet, well, I'm now an Emmy nominee.
Well, that is exactly what's going to happen. At the end of the day, not many people, unless you look into what is required. I remember asking someone, well, what's the parameters for this? But, not many people look that deeply into it. They go, oh, she's won, if she wins an Emmy, she'll be banging on about that to be part of the next thing she bids for more money. I mean, and that's really what the people that make these films and shows are about, because they then get a load of publicity, whether it's negative or positive. Like, how on earth has she got an Emmy? And wow, she's got an Emmy. So they don't care. But as long as there's a lot of noise around it and they get people to look at it and do whatever they like with it, the bottom line is they're getting bang for their buck, and that's what they want.
But the Americans, Jobbo, are not sucked in by this because they obviously know how Hollywood works. So I want to show you a couple of examples. Firstly, and she's certainly not pro-Meghan, let's be honest. She's also called Meghan, but spelled M-E-G-Y-N.
Yeah, very not pro-Meghan.
Yeah, this is Meghan Kelly's verdict.
Meghan Markle is absolutely ruthless when it comes to cutting ties, and her latest casualty is the man who literally reinvented himself just to be her biggest public cheerleader. Insiders have just revealed that Meghan Markle has officially dumped Omid Scobie because he is no longer useful to her brand, pivoting instead to a brand new lineup of mainstream reporters to spin her narrative. But that is just the tip of the iceberg. While Meghan plays musical chairs with her PR team, Prince Harry is facing a massive, unprecedented crisis. A viral global petition signed by thousands is actively demanding his removal from the Invictus Games, accusing him of turning a sacred veteran event into a grotesque Hollywood media circus. Stick around, because we're diving into the staggering financial collapse threatening the Games, the true story behind Meghan's meaningless Emmy nomination, and why top legal minds are calling Prince Harry a spoiled baby for scandalizing the High Court after his latest humiliating legal defeat. Let's look at the absolute pattern of behavior that defines the Sussex operation. We've seen how Meghan treated her childhood friends, her own father, and her extended family. But now, she has turned that cold shoulder on the man who gave up his entire mainstream journalism career to promote her narratives. According to explosive new reporting from Rob Shooter of Shooter's Scoop, the relationship between Meghan and Omid Scobie has gone completely ice-cold. Insiders reveal that this wasn't Scobie's choice. He built his entire career around covering Meghan. She was his biggest story and his literal meal ticket. But as another source brutally pointed out, people are incredibly valuable to her until they aren't. Once she feels she's gotten what she needs, she cuts ties and rarely looks back. With Scobie's latest book failing to even crack the top 10,000 on Amazon and his Hollywood fiction dreams stalling out, he simply lost his utility to the Duchess. He has since retreated from royal reporting entirely, frantically insisting he doesn't even have their phone numbers. So who is Meghan using now? Industry insiders note she is quietly shifting her focus toward established mainstream broadcast journalists like Chris Shipp and Cameron Walker, looking for a veneer of professional credibility rather than a hyper-partisan cheerleader whose brand has become toxic.
That's the thing, Jobson. nobody gives a shit, right? Like, this is not all of a sudden going to make her in demand, because actually, what do people in Hollywood look at? The numbers. And the numbers for
Money,
We Love
yeah.
Meghan were dire.
Yeah, and that's the point, isn't it? It's all about money. And it's I mean, for her, I'm sure she thinks the show's terrific, because actually, if you look back at her podcast before she got involved with the royal family, it's pretty similar to that, isn't it? Except for it's a huge budget. This is what she's about, you know, and it's I mean, you know, it's barely watchable, frankly. I mean, I think it's of no interest to me. I'm sure it's clearly of no interest to many people, actually.
Certainly not me. Certainly not me. But I did watch it so that outspoken viewers didn't have to. So for people who do want to know what we're talking about, you can go back and watch our special episodes on both of those series. Jobbo, Harry was in the UK officially to launch the Invictus Games, but the noise around Invictus and the trouble that Invictus is in, with Paula Frolic of Paula Frolic Uncensored, for example, revealing that it needs 24 million. And now, Jobbo, she's revealed that there's a petition, and it's already garnered thousands of signatures. And this is not to, just to be clear to people, it's not to trash the Invictus Games and say the Invictus Games should finish. It's to say that Harry is not the right guy to lead. But let me just read you out the exact wording of the petition, Jobbo, because I think this is going to build up a lot of steam over the next year. So the petition states, the Invictus Games petition states, Prince Harry, a private citizen with no official representation of any country, is leveraging his position within the Invictus Games to gain access to government entities, media, and military facilities. His involvement raised significant concerns as he manipulates the event founded to support injured veterans for both his personal gain and media exposure. This is not only unethical, but also potentially harmful to the integral mission of the Games. The Invictus Games were established with the noble intention of using the power of sport to inspire positive physical and mental recovery for injured veterans. However, Prince Harry's presence has shifted focus from the heroic and inspiring stories of the competitors to a media circus centered around his persona. Such a shift undermines the essence of the Games and the authentic stories of valor and recovery that deserve the spotlight. It's crucial to note that the athletes competing in the Invictus Games have overcome immense challenges and deserve to be respected and honoured without becoming mere backdrops to someone else's narrative. They are not media props. They are real heroes whose privacy and dignity should be zealously protected. The involvement of individuals like Prince Harry could potentially endanger the values and mission these games represent. We're asking the Invictus Games Foundation to take a strong stand by removing Prince Harry from any formal role within the event. The decision will reaffirm their commitment to the athletes and ensure that the focus remains on their incredible achievements rather than on personalities unrelated to the mission of the Games. Join us in urging the Invictus Games Foundation to uphold the integrity of this vital event, ensuring that it truly remains a celebration of resilience and dedication. Sign this petition to protect the dignity and the spotlight of the competitors who rightfully deserve it. As a result of me starting and sharing this position, I have been blacklisted by YouTube. I also have no more comments posted on Daily Mail. I do not and did not post this petition for any other reason than to show up for the veterans, sick children, military barracks, families of terrorist victims, and government officials. Real life to this degree should never be abused for the sole purpose of a sole person's ego. Please show up for Invictus. Don't let these veterans become unknown collateral damage in this global circus. And Jobbo, I have to be honest, a lot of the points that are being raised in that petition have been raised to me privately over the last couple of years. So do you remember the last Games in Canada? There was absolute horror that the Games were basically becoming the Meghan Markle Games. And indeed, there was massive relief when she finally went home, and some speculation that she was actually sent home because all of the coverage was about her. I mean, all of it, you know, and she posted videos and there was huge discontent at that point. Since then, Jobbo, we've seen the revelation from Tom Bauer, and let's be honest, his book was deeply sourced around Invictus specifically, revealing that major sponsors and funders have expressed concern. And Boeing, I believe, are just one of those massive sponsors who are not returning for the Games in Birmingham. Do you feel like something's going on here?
Look, I think the most important problem they've got is that governments put the most money in. Whenever it's hosted, and remember, it will be hosted in the United Kingdom, so it's going to have a huge amount of money is coming from the government, it's coming from the taxpayer. Now, a lot of people will not be averse to the Invictus Games and see it as an excellent thing for those heroes and people that are injured and people that need this sort of incentive to sort of actually get over some of the deep depression that they're feeling, and they get that back, that camaraderie that they had when they were in the services. But there is a big issue that some governments now are balking at the whole Harry show. They don't want the whole Harry show. Let's guarantee that when it's here in a year's time, the big story will be about Harry and Meghan. It'll be about Lily and Archie. It'll be about whether they're seeing the King. It'll be whether the King is going to attend the games. Will William attend the games? It won't be about the stories that are heroic stories about these brave service personnel from across our allies and our own service personnel. That is a shame. I mean, I've been out on many of these Invictus Games. My fear, having interviewed a lot of these people that get involved, is that they depend upon it now as an incentive to get over so many barriers. Now, I fear for it in long term. I must be honest. It's not so much whether Harry being the figurehead will be a negative point. I actually think that the money will stop over time. And that's why they're making such a big, Harry's trying his hardest to get more money to come in. But it's a very expensive undertaking. And it requires governments to put in tons of money. Yes, it requires sponsors, but it really fundamentally involves the government putting in tons of money.
While Meghan revamps her PR strategy, Prince Harry's crowning achievement is actively slipping through his fingers. Serious questions are being raised about the long-term survival of the Invictus Games, with reports revealing the foundation desperately needs $24 million to stay afloat. Major corporate sponsors like Boeing are reportedly backing away, completely fed up with the surrounding drama. And the public has had enough. A devastating global petition has gathered thousands of signatures, explicitly demanding that the Invictus Games Foundation strip Harry of his formal role. Prince Harry, a private citizen, is leveraging his position within the Invictus Games to gain access to government entities, media, and military facilities. His presence has shifted focus from the heroic stories of the competitors to a media circus centered around his persona. They are not media props. Insiders admit that behind the scenes, there is massive discontent. During the previous games in Canada, there was absolute horror among organizers that the event was transformed into the Meghan Markle show, with veterans treated as mere backdrops for her fashion outings. With the next games heading to the UK, governments and taxpayers are balking at funding a multi-million-dollar security and PR apparatus just to provide a stage for the Sussex family drama. But the most dangerous stunt Prince Harry pulled this week didn't happen on a red carpet. It happened in the British legal system. Following a massive, crushing defeat where a High Court judge ruled entirely against him in a 436-page judgment, Harry did something completely unprecedented for a member of the royal family. He released an angry, public joint statement calling the senior judge's ruling a complete and obvious whitewash.
And it's just, well, firstly, he's very lucky there's a left-wing government in the UK who do have some sympathy for Harry's politics, I would say, because otherwise I really don't believe the funding is at all worth it. Then we come to the court case, Jobbo, and we cannot forget the court case because the ramifications of this are hugely significant. And I don't know if you saw, but I don't think it got enough coverage, actually. The Times, which is very much considered the newspaper of record, the Times of London, for those of you overseas, quoting former Lord Chancellors now, who are not the type to weigh in on this type of thing, Jobbo, unless it's very, very important. So let me just read you their criticism of Prince Harry. And it's two former Justice Secretaries have criticised Harry over his outburst at a High Court judge. Now, we know what happened. We've discussed it in detail. Justice Nicklin found absolutely in the favour of the defendants. And in the aftermath of that ruling, a clearly angry Harry issued a joint statement with Doreen Lawrence, and it was insane. They described the Nicklin judgment as a complete and obvious whitewash that was not altogether unexpected. In what hinted at a conspiracy, Harry and Doreen Lawrence added that the lengths to which the court had gone to exonerate the male is as shocking as it is totally unwarranted. That is despite the fact that he remains a member of the royal family, fifth in line to the throne, a councillor of state, and as the Times points out, his father's coat of arms hangs above judges in every courtroom in the UK. So this is not like you or me, Jobbo, criticising a judge. This is very, very different. And the Times goes on, for someone who is so entwined in the Constitution, to describe a detailed, considered 436-page ruling from a senior High Court judge as a whitewash is certainly unprecedented. Even campaigners for tighter press regulations appeared uneasy with Harry's comments. And so here we come to the criticism. Alex Chalk, KC, the most recent Conservative Justice Secretary and Lord Chancellor, told The Times, expressing disagreement with a judgment is perfectly reasonable. But Harry's attack on a High Court judge was over the top, personal, and unacceptable. Judges act in the name of the king and swear an oath of allegiance to the sovereign. That's how our constitution works, as Harry should know better than most. However disappointed he was with the result, insulting one of His Majesty's judge is a line he shouldn't have crossed. And then there's also another former Justice Secretary, Sir Robert Buckland, KC, who said the tone and content of the attack was not appropriate, noting that Harry could have issued a statement saying the Prince is deeply disappointed by the court's decision and will be taking advice. As to his options in light of this, he will make no further comment. Buckland raised the point that the Baroness Carr of Wootton on the Hill, the Lady Chief Justice, had recently expressed concern over the safety of sitting judges. And this is interesting, this is given that Harry cares so much about his safety. Well, what about the safety of the judges who he's criticised? At a time when the judiciary is facing increasing threats to their security, Buckland said, it is important that major figures in public life and members of the royal family exercise restraint. But it gets worse. Lord Garnier, KC, a former Conservative Solicitor General, suggested that the claimants in the case should remember some core elements of the trial. The judge was there all day, every day, and concentrated throughout the process on doing justice between the parties. Garnier added that Nicklin's judgment contained several hundred pages and about 2,000 paragraphs of analysis, findings of facts, recitations of uncontested facts, and conclusions that flow from those facts. While the final ruling may be disagreeable to the unsuccessful claimants, it seems to me that the claimants embarked for whatever reason on a hugely risky venture, and it did not succeed. But Jobbo, the most extraordinary line in this entire article by The Times was the last one. A spokesman for the Duke said that Harry, quote, stands by every word of his statement. So this is a man completely unrepentant. Despite that meeting with the king, nothing has changed.
Well, he's very lucky because if he'd said this pre-2013, it would have been a problem because there would have been the ruling of scandalising the court. But unfortunately for him, that has been withdrawn. It was something you couldn't do for many, many years. Now, he has scandalised the court. This judge is suggesting that because Justice Nicklin represented when he was a KC or a QC newspapers, that he was somehow biased. You know, he took an oath as a High Court judge, Justice Nicklin, and he vowed to serve the king. The king is the ultimate person in an independent judiciary. That's who they serve. Now, he's calling into question his father's reign here, which is pretty damning and pretty stupid as well. Mind you, I think that Harry is pretty stupid. But to actually say to a High Court judge, and obviously this was cleared by his own lawyers, I would think, and stand with Baroness Lawrence, who I feel has been messed around in this whole thing and somehow got dragged into this thing. But to stand there and say that it was a whitewash is appalling, because the judge, is an eminent man. He has written a 436-page report. He has sat through all of the evidence and he has given very clear directions through it. And those directions exonerated the journalist. And, he could have actually said something more on Harry and said, well, Harry, you said you didn't know journalists. What about your relationship with Charlotte Griffiths? That you clearly did know who was a journalist. So, he let him get away with one there, didn't he? I personally think it's appalling. It wouldn't have been a whitewash, would it, if he had won? It's only a whitewash because he lost. And that is like a little baby throwing out all his toys. He should respect the judiciary and independence of it in this country. He should respect the judge and bow out gracefully. But he doesn't bow out gracefully because he's a big baby, frankly. He's somebody that simply thinks if he doesn't get what he wants, he starts a little rant. Now, to me, he owes that Judge Nicklin, Mr. Justice Nicklin, an apology. I hope that he formally has written to apologise for it. And I also think that his lawyers really ought to sort of rein him in.
This has triggered absolute fury from the highest levels of the British legal establishment. Two former Justice Secretaries and Lord Chancellors, Alex Chalk and Sir Robert Buckland, broke their usual silence to utterly condemn the Prince. Alex Chalk stated bluntly that Harry's personal attack on a sitting judge was over the top, personal, and unacceptable, reminding the public that British judges swear an oath to the sovereign and act directly in the King's name. As fifth in line to the throne, Harry's father's coat of arms literally hangs above the very judge he insulted. Royal commentators didn't hold back, labeling Harry an ungrateful, spoiled baby, throwing his toys out of the stroller just because he didn't get his way. To make matters worse, Harry's spokesperson officially doubled down, stating he stands by every single word of the attack. By scandalizing the independent judiciary, Harry isn't just fighting the press anymore, he is actively attacking his own father's constitutional reign. To distract from legal humiliation and a tanking brand, the Montecito PR machine tried to pull off a classic Hollywood illusion this week, proudly trumpeting that Meghan is now an Emmy nominee. But industry insiders are laughing it off as a desperate PR stitch-up. This isn't the primetime Emmys where prestige television competes. This is the daytime Emmys, the home of cheap soap operas and morning panel shows. Meghan's mega-budget production reportedly had an $80 million budget and a massive 90-person staff. To walk away from a primetime budget with only a daytime nomination for a single season that viewers largely ignored shows exactly how hard the brand has bottomed out. Hollywood elites look at numbers and viewership, and the metrics for her latest venture were entirely dire. From dumping Omid Scobie the second his usefulness expired, to attacking the very judges that protect his father's kingdom, the Sussexes are running out of allies and running out of track. But what do you think? Should the Invictus Games Foundation listen to the veterans and remove Prince Harry to save the event? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. Don't forget to smash that like button, share this video with fellow royal watchers, and subscribe to stay tuned for the real, uncensored story.